In this lesson, we'll look at some design options for our speaker grill. If you've been working on your own file, continue to do that, but if you'd like to follow along with the same file I'm using, go into your sample file section and open the file named 07 Walkie-talkie Start. You'll see we have our walkie-talkie all set up. We have most of our major surfaces and parts already delineated, but we need to work on this speaker grill. We have this area right here with nothing going on, and that's right where our speaker grill needs to be. So I'm going to go into the front view, and I'm going to switch a few things off here. So I'm going to turn off the main body, antenna, volume knobs, all of the bezels with the exception of the main face bezel. That's ultimately all we'll have left on. To take a brief look at my underlay, turn off my face bezel. You'll notice I've indicated some sort of a circular pattern here, but I haven't really kind of explored the options. So we are going to look at a circular pattern, but we're also going to look at some rectangular patterns for this area. So switch this off, and we'll go ahead and get started with that. So we're going to be working in this area here. So the one thing I do know about my speaker grill, no matter what kind of pattern we end up with, is that it's not going to come all the way out to the edges here. So what I'll do is I'm going to actually make a boundary for this. So I'm going to use the boundary to kind of clean up some of the points. And I'll use the boundary to clean up some of my excess parts of my grill once I start designing it. I will use my duplicate edge command, and I'll zoom in here. I'm going to duplicate this edge going around. Enter. And then in my right viewport, I do want to make sure this is all in the same plane. You can see it's not a planar curve. So I'll go to Transform, set XYZ coordinates, and I want to move them along the Y axis. So I'll uncheck the Set X and the Set Z commands, and just set that to Set Y. And now anywhere I move this, notice if I move my cursor up or down, it doesn't matter. We can only move these curves in the Y axis. Click, let me turn off my grid snap here, and I'll click just a little in front of my grill. Go back to my front view again, and I can actually turn off the face bezel. So I'll take this duplicated edge, and I'm going to offset this. So I'll go under my curve commands here, and I'll offset the curve. And let's see, let's try a distance of 2 millimeters. And when I click that, now we have a nice offset. If I bring back my face bezel, you can see that sets that in quite nicely for us. So now I can actually go ahead and hide this duplicated edge, and I'm left with this curve here. So I do want to cap off this curve, but I don't want just a straight curve across it. I want to put something with a little arc to it. So rather than drawing something with my control point curve, I'm going to use my arc commands. And I use my arc start endpoint arc. So my start of the arc is here, my end of my arc is here, and I can either go this direction or this direction. I think I'll bring that up just a little bit. Let me switch this face bezel back on, because I want to make sure I stay out of this button area. So as I said, I'm just going to bring this up just very slightly, just to give it a little bit of an arc. So this represents the boundary of where I want my speaker grill to lay. And I'm just going to identify a center line, so I'm just using my polyline tool. And I'll get either a mid or a quad snap. It's going to give me the same thing here. And I'll come down and snap there. So now I know I can find the center of my grill. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a few different design iterations for what could be grill patterns or grill holes. And we're going to do this all in curves. In a later lesson, we'll take our favorite designs and we'll actually go ahead and we'll Boolean those out of the faceplate. But for now, we're going to work in curves, keep this nice and simple and very clean and easy to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is just draw my main curve. So I want a center curve, and I'm going to put this one right in the center of this grill area. And I'm going to make this a 0.65 grill. So it's going to be a very small grill hole. So I do want all my circles to be concentric coming off of this. And one very easy way to lay this out is actually going to be to use our array commands. So let me go ahead and open up all of our array options here. So we have rectangular and polar array, and those are going to be the two that we work with here. But even though ultimately I'm going to end up with a polar array for this rounded grill, I am going to lay it out using a rectangular array. And let me walk you through that. So I have my circular grill hole shape, and what I want to do is just lay out a series of these, all spaced equidistant apart. So rectangular array is fantastic for that. Even if you're not making a rectangle, you can make a nice straight line with evenly spaced options. Now working with the array, I do find that I get somewhat confused with what direction is what. So right now, number in X direction is 1, and that seems to me that should be the direction going off into the left. I actually want to pull one vertically here. So in this view, that looks like that should be Z. So for number in X direction, I'm just going to leave it at 1, which is the 1 kind of itself here. I'll hit enter. Y direction, that should also be a 1. And it seems as though number in Z direction is what I want. So if I type a 10 here and hit enter, and now it's asking me for my spacing, and we're going to use a 2mm spacing. So now I see it's turned pink. It's showing me some alternatives. So it's showing me what it's going to do, and it's going to allow me to accept that. But I don't see anything has changed. So let me go to my perspective viewport and see what I have. And sure enough, you can see these are actually going in the wrong direction for me. So that's not a problem at all. We will just redo this command. We're going to hit escape this time. I'll press enter to reapply the command. I'm just going to enter 10 here. I know that's ultimately going to be wrong, but let's just have a look at how we can kind of change things around here. So we got 10, number in Y direction is 1, number in Z direction is 1, and X spacing, let's put 2. So now you can see we're going off to the right. So let's just hit escape to end that command. We'll reapply it again. Number in X direction, 1. Number in Y direction, let's make that 10. Number in Z direction, we'll leave that at 1. And our spacing is going to be 2. So now that's doing what I want it to do. And if I zoom out a little bit here, you can kind of see what's happening. So I think that looks pretty good. So I'll just go ahead and hit enter to accept that. As I said, we started with a rectangular array command here. But ultimately, we are going to go ahead and use a polar array. And we will continue with the polar array command in the next lesson.